Hi, I'm Dalton. This is Physics 2212's Lab 2, dealing with lines of charge. So here's an introduction. The overall purpose of this lab is to analyze the reaction between two charged strips of tape, but with the thing being that we're now analyzing the tapes as line charges rather than point charges in Lab 1. So I'm going to use a computational model to determine relevant values to this interaction, such as the charges. And obviously, as a note, the results from Lab 1 are used, as this lab kind of builds off of that. So the physics concept used here, Newton's second law, the Coulomb law, and then just some constants you can see down there. A quick preview of the lab. I found that the line charge for the tapes was 2.38 times 10 to the negative 7, and that was 4.4% less than the charge when viewing it as a point charge. So just a quick recap of what happened in Lab 1. Essentially, a piece of tape was given some charge, and then that was found to be positive or negative. And then considering that, we found the charge of the tapes as a point charge. So the findings here were that the tapes were positively charged, and I found that the charge on a tape was 1.053 times 10 to the negative 8. So here's a look at the computational model for this lab. You can see the two line charges and then arrows representing the forces that are acting on the tapes. So here's the glow script code. Here on the left at the top is just some more initialization stuff, putting in the mass, the estimated charges I got from Lab 1, and then the function at the bottom is just to return electric fields. Additionally, this one with just two lines gives the initial positions of the tapes, which is just something from the real world data, what I measured. And then this for loop here is just finding the electric field at each location and the force from that, because the line charge is now distributed, so we have to do it for each spot on the line charge, rather than with a point charge where it's just one time, hence the iteration. So the results of this, I found that the line charge, once again, did have a charge of 2.38 times 10 to the negative 7, and that the charge is about 4.42% less than that of the charge when it was a point charge. All right, so now let's go over the assumptions that were made for this. First was that both tapes are evenly distributed line charges. Another is that both tapes are going to have identical charges. And then some other things, there's no charge loss, so assuming like hand milling and everything like that didn't result in any change. And then additionally, that air resistance is negligible. So there are also, of course, some sources of error here. One is that the measurements of the tapes, weight, length, and things like that was probably not super precise just due to the tools I had. Charge was probably lost as it's not a perfect environment. Air resistance would have some effect. And lastly, the tapes could have had different charges. There's no way to know for sure if it was the same, and it probably wasn't. So now a what if question. So we'll ask, what if the tapes were still modeled as point charges? Well, what would happen is the charge would have been larger as compared to when we used the line charges. And as stated, I got those two values, the 1.053 times 10 to the 8 for the point, and the 2.3 times 10 to the negative 7 for the line, which we can clearly tell is less, proving that argument definitely holds here. All right, so another question. Why do the estimates differ, and which is better? So with all the charge in one point, the electric fields can be, the impact is higher on each other because that isn't spread. It's all directly right there as compared to a line charge, where some of the charges are going to be closer in the middle, but when we go to the edges, they're going to be further away. So that means that the effect is going to be slightly different. And if we're talking about which is better, that's going to be the line charge, because the charges being distributed along a line is more realistic to what would actually happen and is happening on the tapes as compared to assuming it's all 1 point charge, which is most likely not the case. So just to conclude, in this lab we modeled a line charge and found that it returns a different result than doing it with point charges. And additionally, we came to the conclusion that the line charge model is more accurate to what would actually occur in the real world as compared to the point charge. Thank you for listening.